Kelechi Daramola returned home later than usual that evening. The traffic from Victoria Island to Lekki had been long, and his mind was still busy with meetings, numbers, and plans for the next day. As the black car rolled through the gate of his mansion, he loosened his tie and sighed. Home was usually the place where noise welcomed him. Children laughing, soft music playing, a voice calling his name. But tonight the compound was strangely quiet. The lights were on, yet nothing moved. Kelechi stepped out of the car and paused. Something felt different, though he could not explain why. The air itself felt still, like the house was holding its breath. He walked toward the door and pushed it open. "Tonya," he called gently. No answer. The living room looked neat, almost too neat. The pillows were arranged carefully, and the floor was clean, yet something was missing. Kelechi's eyes moved to the wall. The family photo. It was gone. Only a faint mark remained where it used to hang. His heart beat a little faster. He walked deeper into the house. The small flower vase he bought recently was no longer on the table. The rug near the staircase was missing too. Not thrown away. Removed, carefully. Kelechi climbed the stairs slowly now, each step heavier than the last. The silence followed him like a shadow. The bedroom door was open. He stood at the entrance for a moment before stepping inside. The room was tidy but lighter. Half of the wardrobe was empty. Tonya's clothes were gone. Her shoes were missing from their place. Her jewelry box was no longer on the dresser. On the bed, placed neatly in the center, was a folded note. Kelechi sat down. He unfolded it slowly, his hands steady but his heart unsure. The handwriting was calm, clear. "Kelechi, I need time and space to rest and reflect. This marriage has become difficult for me. I am not angry. I just need peace. Please take good care of the children. I will reach out when I am ready." He read it once, then again. No harsh words, no blame, no argument, just distance. Kelechi leaned back on the bed and stared at the ceiling. This was his fourth marriage, and it had ended quietly. That scared him more than shouting ever could. After a few minutes, he stood up and walked to the children's room. The door was slightly open. Inside, the nanny sat quietly on a chair, watching over Zion and Zara as they slept. Zion hugged his pillow tightly. Zara held her teddy bear close. They looked safe, peaceful. Kelechi felt relief wash over him. "They're okay?" he asked softly. "Yes, sir," the nanny replied. "They had dinner and went to bed early." "Thank you," he said. That word felt strange on his tongue. He returned to his room, but sleep refused to come. The house felt too big, too silent. His mind began to wander, slowly at first, then faster. 4 marriages, 4 endings. Each time he believed he had tried his best. Each time something still went wrong. For years he had pushed those thoughts away. Tonight he could not. As the hours passed, memories rose gently without anger, without judgment. His first wife, Amara, they met as teenagers. They grew up together. For almost 10 years they shared dreams, laughter, and hope. People used to say they were made for each other. When they married, everyone celebrated. But the marriage ended within a year. At the time he believed it was just one of those things. Now, lying alone in the quiet room, he wondered if it was something more. He remembered how often he wanted things done a certain way, how small issues bothered him deeply, how easily he became tense when things did not go as planned. At the time it felt normal, necessary. Now it felt heavy. Kelechi sat up and rubbed his face slowly. For the first time in his life, a thought came to him without fear or anger. What if I need to change? The idea surprised him, not because it was impossible, but because he had never allowed himself to think it before. As the sun began to rise, its soft light filled the room. Kelechi stood up and looked at the empty side of the bed. He did not feel hatred, and he did not feel blame. He felt something new, curiosity, hope, and a quiet determination. That morning, Kelechi Daramola made a simple decision. He would stop looking for faults in others and start looking inward. He did not know where that journey would lead. But he knew one thing: that quiet night was not the end. It was the beginning. Kelechi Daramola sat quietly in a small office in Victoria Island. The room was calm. The walls were light in color. The air smelled clean and soft. Nothing here felt rushed. That was new to him. Kelechi was used to fast decisions, tight schedules, and strict control. Silence usually made him uncomfortable, but today he stayed quiet. Across from him sat Dr. Ifunanya, a calm woman with a gentle voice. "Kelechi," she said kindly, "why did you decide to come here?" He thought for a moment before answering. "I want to understand myself better," he said. She nodded. "That is a good place to start." They spoke slowly. Not about blame, not about failure, but about patterns. "I have been married more than once," Kelechi said. "Each time I believed I was doing my best." "And now?" she asked. "Now," he replied carefully, "I want to learn how to do better." Dr. Ifunanya asked about his daily habits, his reactions, and how he handled stress. Kelechi explained that he liked things neat and organized. He preferred routines. When things went wrong, he felt uncomfortable and tense. "I always thought that pointing out mistakes was helpful," he said. "I believed it would make life easier." She listened and then said gently, "Sometimes I focusing only on mistakes can make people feel unseen." That sentence stayed with him. Over the next few days, Kelechi returned for more sessions. Each time, he learned something small but important. He began to notice how quickly he reacted when things did not go as planned. He noticed how his tone changed without him realizing it. For the first time, he paused. One afternoon, after a session, Kelechi sat alone in his car instead of driving away immediately. Memories surfaced. His first wife, Amara. They met in secondary school. They grew together for almost 10 years. She supported him through difficult seasons and believed in his dreams. Their marriage started with joy. But over time, small disagreements grew, not big fights, just tension. He remembered moments when Amara looked tired, moments when she became quieter. At the time, he thought everything was normal. Now, with new understanding, he saw those moments differently. He remembered one evening when she said softly, "Sometimes I feel like I am never enough." He had replied, "I just want things done well." He did not mean harm, but harm still happened. Sitting in his car, Kelechi realized something important. Good intentions do not always lead to good outcomes. That evening at home, Kelechi noticed the children playing on the floor. Toys were scattered everywhere. Normally he would have complained. This time he stopped. He took a breath. And he joined them. Zion looked up in surprise. "Daddy, you're playing?" Kelechi smiled. "Yes." They laughed together. It felt small, but it felt different. Later, Kelechi received a message from an old friend. "I hope you are well. I thought you should know. Amara lives in Abuja now." Kelechi stared at the message quietly. Another message followed. "She works with people, helping them grow and heal." The words stayed with him. That night, he mentioned it during his session. "I'm thinking about speaking to her," he said, "not to return, just to understand." Dr. Ifunanya nodded. "If you go, go with honesty, not expectations." Kelechi agreed. That evening, he sat alone and reflected. For many years, he believed success meant control. Now he was learning that growth meant understanding. The next morning, he packed a small bag. Nothing fancy, just the basics. Before leaving, he spoke to his children. "I'm going on a short trip," he said. "I'm learning how to be better." Zion nodded seriously. "That's good, Daddy." As Kelechi drove toward the airport, he felt nervous, not because of what Amara might say, but because he was finally ready to listen. Abuja awaited him, and with it a chance to face the truth with humility, not pride. Abuja felt calm. That was the first thing Kelechi noticed as his car moved through the wide roads lined with trees. The city did not rush him. It did not shout. It did not compete for attention. It simply existed. And for a man who had spent years moving fast, correcting details, and pushing himself and others, that calm felt unfamiliar. Kelechi checked the address on his phone again. The Haven Counseling Center. He parked across the street and sat in the car longer than necessary. People walked in and out of the building quietly. Some smiled when they came out. Some looked thoughtful. No one looked afraid. He took a deep breath. For the first time since leaving Lagos, doubt crept in. What if she doesn't want to see me? What if this makes things worse? But he remembered the promise he made to himself to be honest, not perfect. So he stepped out of the car and walked toward the entrance. Inside, the air was cool and peaceful. Soft music played quietly. A young woman at the reception desk looked up and smiled. "Good afternoon," she said. "How can I help you?" Kelechi hesitated. "I'm here to see Amara." The receptionist nodded gently. "Do you have an appointment?" "No," he admitted. "But please tell her Kelechi Daramola is here." The receptionist studied his face for a moment, then picked up the phone. Kelechi stood there, hands clasped, heart beating fast. After a short call, she hung up. "She will see you," she said. "Please wait." Kelechi sat down. Every second felt heavy. Then the door opened, and she walked out. Amara. For a moment, he forgot how to breathe. She looked different, not because of clothes or hairstyle, but because of how she carried herself. Her shoulders were relaxed, her steps steady. Her eyes calm. She was not the woman he remembered trying to please him. She was someone who looked at peace with herself. "Kelechi," she said. Her voice was polite, neutral. "Amara," he replied. They looked at each other quietly, like two people meeting again after a long journey. "Come in," she said. Her office was simple and warm. A small bookshelf, 2 chairs, a plant by the window. She sat across from him, not beside him. That distance mattered. "So," she said gently, "what brings you here?" Kelechi took a deep breath. "I came to apologize," he said. She nodded. "For what exactly?" "For not listening," he replied. "For thinking love meant correction. For believing that being right was more important than being kind." Amara listened. She did not interrupt. She did not argue. When he finished, she spoke calmly. "I'm glad you can say that now," she said. "It took me years to understand that what hurt me was not anger, but constant pressure." Kelechi lowered his head. "I didn't see it then," he said. "I see it now." "That's good," she replied, "but understanding does not erase the past." "I know," he said quickly. "I didn't come to change history. I came to learn from it." Amara studied him closely. "People change in 2 ways," she said. "Some change because they are afraid of loss. Others change because they truly see themselves." Kelechi met her eyes. "I am learning to see myself." Silence settled between them, not uncomfortable, but thoughtful. She stood up and walked to the window. "When I left you," she said softly, "I thought I failed. I thought love was not enough." She turned back to him. "But now I know something important." "What?" he asked. "Love needs safety," she said, "and I didn't feel safe being corrected every day." The words were gentle but clear. Kelechi nodded slowly. "I understand that now," he said. She returned to her seat. "I forgave you long ago," Amara continued. "Forgiveness helped me heal, but forgiveness does not mean returning." "I respect that," Kelechi replied. He stood up. "I didn't come here to ask you back," he said. "I came to tell you the truth, that you were never the problem." Amara's eyes softened. "That matters," she said. And as he turned to leave, she added, "Change is not proven in moments like this. It's proven over time." "I will remember that," he said. Outside, Kelechi felt lighter, not happy, but honest. That evening, his phone buzzed with messages. News blogs had picked up stories about his multiple marriages. Some people speculated, others judged. Kelechi did not respond. Instead, he sat quietly in his hotel room and reflected. He had faced Amara, and she did not break him. She reminded him. The next morning, he returned to Lagos. Back home, life continued but differently. He noticed when irritation rose and paused. He listened more, corrected less. Days passed, then weeks. One afternoon, Amara called. "I'll be in Lagos for a short program," she said. "I thought we could talk again if you're still open." Kelechi smiled. "And I am," he said. As he hung up, he looked around his home. It was still quiet, but now the quiet felt hopeful. Because change had begun, not loudly, not perfectly, but honestly. And for the first time in a long time, Kelechi believed that the future did not have to repeat the past. When Kelechi returned to Lagos, life did not suddenly become easy. In fact, it became quieter, and that quiet tested him more than noise ever had. The house was still neat. The routine still existed. Work still demanded his attention. But something inside him had shifted. He noticed it in small moments, the kind he used to ignore. One morning, as he prepared breakfast for the children, Zion accidentally spilled juice on the table. Kelechi felt the familiar tension rise in his chest, the urge to correct, the urge to speak sharply, the urge to point out what went wrong. He paused. He took a breath. "It's okay," he said calmly. "Let's clean it together." Zion looked up in surprise. "You're not angry?" Kelechi smiled. "No. Accidents happen." That moment stayed with him for the rest of the day. At work, he practiced the same patience. When a report came in late, he asked questions instead of raising his voice. When a meeting did not go as planned, he listened before responding. People noticed. His assistant mentioned it gently one afternoon. "Sir, you seem different." Kelechi nodded. "I'm learning." Learning was not easy. Some days he failed. Some days, old habits returned quietly. But now, when they did, he noticed and corrected himself. That mattered. A few weeks later, his fourth wife, Tonya, reached out. Not with anger, not with blame, but with calm words. She wanted to talk about the children's routine and how they could both stay involved. Kelechi agreed without hesitation. They met in a neutral place, a quiet cafe in Lekki. The conversation was respectful, careful, focused on the children. At the end, Tonya looked at him thoughtfully. "You're calmer," she said. "I'm trying to be," he replied. She nodded. "I hope you keep trying." That hope mattered. Days turned into weeks, and one afternoon, Amara arrived in Lagos. She did not come with expectations. She did not come to move back in. She came for a short program and a few meetings. They met in a public place at first, a quiet garden cafe. She observed him closely. How he listened, how he responded, how he handled interruptions. She noticed the pauses he took before speaking. "You've changed," she said carefully. "I'm changing," he corrected, "still learning." She smiled slightly. That honesty is new. They spoke about simple things. The children, work, life, no pressure, no promises. Over the next few weeks, Amara spent more time around the family, not as a partner, but as a presence. She saw how Kelechi interacted with his children, how he bent down to their level, how he laughed more, how he corrected gently when correction was needed. One evening, as the children played quietly in the living room, Amara spoke softly. "You're not rushing this," she said. "I don't want to," he replied. "I don't want to repeat the past." She nodded. "That's wise." But not everyone believed the change. Some people whispered. Some doubted. Some waited for him to return to old habits. Kelechi heard the doubts, but he did not fight them. He focused on consistency. Therapy continued. Reflection continued. Growth continued. One afternoon, Kelechi received an invitation to speak at a small business leadership event. In the past, he would have spoken about success, discipline, and control. This time, he spoke about learning. "I used to think leadership meant always being right," he said. "Now I know it means listening." The audience was quiet. The message was simple, but real. That evening, Amara called him. "I heard about your talk," she said. "You spoke honestly." "I'm done pretending," he replied. She was silent for a moment. "Kelechi," she said, "if we ever try again, it will not be because of history." "I understand," he said. "It will be because of who we are now." That conversation stayed with him. Weeks later, Amara visited the house again. This time she stayed for dinner. The meal was simple, not perfect, but warm. As they sat together, Zion looked between them and smiled. "You both look happy," he said. Kelechi and Amara exchanged a quiet look. Not happy, not yet, but hopeful. Later that night, after the children had gone to bed, Amara stood by the window. "I used to be afraid of losing myself," she said softly. "I don't want you to," Kelechi replied. "Not again." She turned to face him. "Then remember this," she said. "If we walk together, it must be side by side." He nodded. "Always." That night, nothing dramatic happened. No declarations, no promises, just understanding. And sometimes understanding is the strongest foundation. Kelechi stood alone on the balcony later. I'm watching the Lagos lights flicker in the distance. For the first time in many years, he did not feel the need to control the future. He only wanted to continue choosing a different way. And that choice made daily, quietly, sincerely was changing everything. Change did not arrive suddenly for Kelechi Daramola. It came quietly. It came in pauses. It came in moments where he chose not to speak, not to correct, not to control. Months had passed since he began his journey of self-reflection, and life had taken on a slower rhythm. Lagos still moved fast around him, but inside his home, something new had settled. Peace. Not the kind that comes from silence alone, but the kind that grows from understanding. Every week, Kelechi continued his sessions. He did not go because he was told to. He went because he wanted to understand himself better. He learned how to sit with discomfort, how to let small imperfections exist without feeling threatened, how to listen without preparing a response in his head. Most importantly, he learned how to be present. The children noticed it before anyone else. Zion no longer hesitated before speaking. He talked freely, laughed loudly, and sometimes made mistakes without fear. Zara followed her father everywhere, dragging her little toys behind her, confident that he would always respond with patience. Some evenings, Kelechi cooked with them. The food was not always perfect. Sometimes the rice was too soft. Sometimes the soup tasted different from how he remembered. But no one complained. They ate together, they talked, they laughed. And the house that once felt empty now felt alive again. Amara remained part of their lives, but carefully. She did not move back immediately. She did not rush conversations. She watched quietly. She observed how Kelechi handled stress, how he reacted when plans changed, how he treated people when there was no audience watching. One afternoon, they sat together in the garden while the children played nearby. "You don't rush anymore," Amara said softly. "I don't want to," Kelechi replied. "I spent too many years rushing things that needed patience." She nodded. "That's new," she said. "I know," he replied, "and I want to protect it." They spoke often during that period, about the past, but without anger, about the present, with honesty, about the future, without pressure. There were clear boundaries, and Kelechi respected them. That mattered more than words ever could. One evening, Amara asked a question Kelechi had been waiting for, but never demanded. "Why do you want another chance with me?" she asked. Kelechi did not answer immediately. He took his time. "Because," he said slowly, "I loved you when I didn't understand love. I confused control with care, correction with responsibility, and I hurt you without realizing it." He paused. "Now I am learning what love really is. And if I ever choose again, I want to choose with understanding, not fear." Amara looked at him quietly. "I won't lose myself again," she said firmly. "You won't," Kelechi replied. "Even if it means losing you, I will never ask you to shrink for me." That was the moment something shifted, not dramatically, not loudly, but deeply. The decision to try again was gentle. Oh, there was no announcement, no celebration, no pressure. They started again as partners, equal, honest, aware. Months later, they decided to remarry. Not because the past demanded it, but because the present felt right. They chose a buha, a small, quiet ceremony. No crowd, no cameras, just family, a few friends, and the children. On the day of the wedding, Kelechi stood beside Amara, holding her hand gently. She looked calm, confident, whole. There were no grand promises spoken aloud, only simple truths. "I choose patience," Kelechi said. "I choose honesty," Amara replied. "I choose listening," he added. "I choose myself with you," she said. When it was done, there was no loud applause, only smiles, only peace. Later that evening, as the sun dipped low in the sky, Kelechi stood alone for a moment, reflecting. 4 marriages had failed, not because love was missing, but because understanding was. For years, he believed leadership meant being right. He believed love meant correction. He believed responsibility meant control. In truth, those beliefs had cost him deeply. It took loss to bring clarity. It took silence to teach him how to listen. And it took returning not to the past, but to the truth to finally grow. Amara joined him and rested her head lightly on his shoulder. "You look peaceful," she said. "I feel grounded," he replied. They stood together, watching the evening sky change colors. No fear, no rush, just gratitude. Kelechi knew life would never be perfect. He knew challenges would still come. But this time, he was ready to face them with patience instead of pressure, with understanding instead of judgment, and with love instead of control. Sometimes, the end of many wrong paths is the beginning of the right one, and sometimes, going back is not failure, it is growth.